Good evening. Is this working all right? Okay, hope so. Thank you for coming out and sharing with me tonight this space. Thank you, Paya, for inviting me, and for Joan Roshi for thinking of me as that person to come and do this work with everyone. So as it usually turns out, when someone asks me what your topic is going to be a month in advance or two, I kind of hesitate because usually it's not that by the time I get in this seat. And so on the, I think, publicity, it said I will be talking about the fullness of emptiness. So tonight I promise that those key words will show up somewhere in this talk. But I think we're going to tune into a different station tonight. And that station is right here, what's right here in my heart. And what has been gifted to me since I've been here. And so I started out here, and I was just like full of joy to find out that Kaz Tanahashi and Peter Levitt were here, and that they were going to be teaching poetry. And I have been studying poetry as the way of Zen practice. It has been my new way of entering. Actually, it's an old gate that I left because I was definitely inspired by Zen through poetry, not so much the teachings, but the poetry and how the teachings showed up there. And so when I discovered there was going to be this class on the poetry of Han Shan, I was ready in my seat and smiling and glowing. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is influenced by the poem I wrote. We were asked to write a poem in the mind of Han Shan, and that his name means cold mountain. He took on the name of the mountain, which a lot of Zen poets did. They took on the name of the area in which they lived, or the hut, or wherever they were. And so I wanted to share my poem with you, and then I will tell you why I'm sharing it today and what our topic's going to be. I'm going to keep you in suspense around that. Okay? So being offered to write this poem, this is what I wrote. Pale yellow swallowtails spread their wings. Winds of the monsoon rains whip past spruce trees like 100-foot waves on the desert. Thunder unleashed 1,000,000 years of screams from my heart, loud enough to put out lights and expose the darkness, inducing cicadas to sing. If we cannot say we are afraid of the dark, then thunder is understood. Heartbeat out of control is perfect. Screaming is sane in a world dying from its own inventions. What if candlelight is all that is left to find the way to Cold Mountain? Upon arrival, the candlelight dies into a heap of your bones. So, we're going to get back to it. One of the things in writing poetry, when you're listening to the silence, and I think it was said during the class that oftentimes words and maybe teachings come to you while you're writing. You don't even know you're going to write this, or that you even know this, or maybe you don't know it. Something new comes through. And that there are particular words that come out as you're writing. You're like, kind of like, wow, I didn't know this. I'm writing about this and I didn't know about it. And so in this particular poem, I did experience that. And the sentence that jumped out at me was, Screaming is sane in a world dying from its own inventions. That's the one that jumped. I mean, maybe there was a different one for you, but that one really jumped out, and I kept like, whoa, what does that mean? Is sane in a world dying from its own inventions. And I sat with it for a little while, and I wondered why it was even in my poem, because it's not what I was thinking about. But it was that kind of surprise you want, that comes up, something you're unaware until you hear it from the silence, comes through. And so that is what I want to talk about a little bit, living and dying from our inventions in this world. And I thought, well, this is very interesting. What does it mean? What is an invention? And how are we living and dying with what comes through us? What we create. And I know for myself when I'm creating something, so I kind of aligned inventions with creativity. When I'm creating something, I'm very excited. It's like, wow, this is very enjoyable, at least for the moment. Sometimes later on we go, oh, I don't know what that was, but in the moment we're enjoying our creativity, whatever it is. It could be cooking, sewing. It doesn't have to be writing or painting, like writing a book, or those kinds of things. It could be whatever you create in the moment. And so I understood this to maybe possibly be related to that first verse in the Dhammapada, and which is one of my favorite books, and it's the teachings of Buddha and just like short snippets. I kind of liken them to Cliff Notes in some way, to the 80,000 teachings. And so anyway, that first, all my practice, I'm always stuck at the first verse, and I wanted to read it to you. This is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, and this is what came to mind when I started exploring inventions. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If with an impure mind a person speaks or acts, suffering follows. So I'll say it again. If with an impure mind a person speaks or acts, suffering follows him, like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. So you could practice that for you. You could just take that one little piece of Dharma for the rest of your Dharma practice for a lifetime. And I pretty much have taken this on for maybe the most of my Zen practice. Because the other verse says, if you have a pure mind, then happiness follows you like a shadow. So that's the next one. So there's something about, in our inventions, I thought, that we are somehow, or in some way, using our thoughts, in a particular way. And so it really depends on how we're using our thoughts, how we're creating, and how we're bringing in inventions into this world and what it means. And so we all know that there's been some, we might, say for instance, Oppenheimer, he was very brilliant, and he was a theoretical physicist, and he was happy about the discovery he was making. And then I understand later to be very sorrowful in how his creation was used as the atomic bomb later by the nuclear physicists. So it was really, I think he had to step back and see what did I invent. And I think there was a, I don't know if I wrote that down or not, but I think it was heard that he said he felt like he brought death to the world, and that was not his intention. It was his creativity. Then we have other kinds of inventions we can think of, like cell phones, where this invention feels, great. Wow, a great idea, connect people, change how we call, how we pick up our messages. during the day. And then later on, many years later, we discover the tragedy of Congolese and Rwandan Africans mining the land for all of the minerals that are there, like coal and tin and these different tungsten, I think, I'm not sure of all the minerals that they use for all of our devices. And so here again, these are inventions, and they also come from this place of creativity. And sometimes what we might create can bring massive destruction. And so I think that's why that sentence jumped out at me. And because in the first part, there's this me talking about a million screams, and that the thunder sounded like it just released this scream inside of me that I knew was old, even older than me. And it was about being in this world, and how we are frightened and we don't know what to do with that. And so sometimes we do create things to help us deal with that, to deal with what we're frightened of, what we think needs to be changed, and how it needs to be changed, and when it needs to be changed, and make sure it's my way. I have an idea. That's really where it begins. And that's not a bad thing, because we have had some good inventions, correct? Some good inventions that have brought cures, of illnesses or, whatever. You can think of so many inventions that have actually helped us, And something as simple as a zafu is an invention. Something as simple as a Dharma Talk. This is an invention. You're witnessing and exploring. So are we inventing to be just having an invention? Are we inventing with some kind of knowing and understanding of the impact of our creativity and inventions? Are we inventing for invention's sake, just to see what would happen, and then if it happens, oh my God, I didn't know that was going to happen? Are we inventing with our wisdom, with our compassion, and how can we bring inventions that to this world that are not that we're not going to die from eventually? And so that's what came to me. It is important to consider, what we are inventing right now. Like right now, in your own mind, what are you inventing in your own life? Even if you're inventing your, how you're going to work in the world, or reinventing yourself, so that you appear in the world and do different work. What are you inventing? What are you inventing even right now while you're sitting here, thinking of inventions and creativity and those kinds of things? Are you inventing just so that it could be, you could be famous or rich or known, like people would see you and know you for what you did? Or what? To really, I think it's important to explore it. And when I looked at this poem again and again and again, in that walking with the candlelight and it going out, so you could have a flashlight. Why candlelight? That's an invention. It could have had a lantern. That's an invention. But in this poem, I began to see as I was writing it that candlelight, and that's why when it goes out, it's my bones that are there, that are gone, because the light is right here. I don't have to invent it. I don't have to go out and invent something to light up a dark cave. We don't have to invent that. There are some things that are very natural and organic and innate in ourselves as human beings. So there's some things within us that we haven't yet tapped into. We always think it's a thing we have to invent, or a method, or a technique, or a place, or something. But when what we may need is right with us. So that light is and was me as I was writing. And then it blows out and discovered that. And with some little help with one of my teachers too, other teachers, that light is, that candlelight was me, looking for Cold Mountain, which is to look for the essence of this world and to discover the wisdom within it. So that's what we're doing in this practice, and why we're sitting. So in our sitting practice and Zazen, a lot of times we might think we're inventing something while we're sitting here, like reinventing ourselves or reinventing something. So take a look at that to see what that means and what's behind it. A story was told once of a young man who went to a sesshin, and he was really agitated in the beginning, and then he finally, of course, you settle down. It's day 1 and 2. You settle down because you're exhausted, but and you can't even remember what your habits were. You're just kind of gone, and what day is it? And so he got to that point, and he was settled. I think it was day 3, and he jumps up and he goes to the teacher, and he says, "I think I've got it." And the teacher says, "What?" He said, "I finished my novel. I got the ending of my novel." And so for some of you who may not have sat a long time, that was kind of interesting to come up with spending that time with characters that didn't exist, or in a place that didn't exist, in a place, and to use that breath for such an invention. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I actually created a painting because I saw it in the wall, So, of course, what, I don't know. So that painting's in that book, Tell Me Something About Buddhism. I'm not trying to sell the book. But anyway, it's in there, and it's one of my most precious illustrations. And I just saw it in there. It was a mother holding her child. All you can see is the child's head, and it's a mother. And it warmed me, and I couldn't let it go. They sometimes call these things when you're sitting for a very long time, makyos, where you start to see and, kind of, you could be hallucinating, but illusions, things coming up, and you're to really just let them go. But I got really fascinated with it, and I just dug right into that painting, and have shown it to everyone. And sometimes I feel maybe I just expressed something that was just in the room or in me, and shared that with other people in their need for mother or mothering. And so this practice of Zazen and sitting, or whatever meditation you may take on, I invite you to be as Hanshan, be as a hermit, where you are listening to the monsoon rain, you see the butterfly, and you notice the scream inside your own hollow body in some way, and you recognize yourself in a way you may not have recognized yourself before, and to not take on the practice to come up with more inventions. However, if you should come up with, you want to invent or create, and I think that this notion of being a hermit is a good way to enter this place, to see and hear what is needed, rather than deciding what is needed. What is needed, even in our own activism that we need to do today in this world, that we sit long enough and that there's a pause long enough. Not just do, to be doing because we should be doing, but to sit and see what's needed to be done, beyond the obvious. There are some things very obvious, and we do those things. But there's something else, and I think sometimes we miss that in our society as a collective human race. We're busy racing toward the solution, toward the end, toward the result, toward the fix it, please, quickly. It doesn't feel good. rather than take that pause that, say, maybe a hermit may take, and sit and listen and see what is needed without your mind, without using your strategy. What is needed is me. Okay, I'll step up, and I'll take lead. Or what is needed is this, and I'll make sure it happens. What is needed is that. And that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong in it. But if we're to create an invention in which we could live with and not die from, is to slow down and take a pause to see what we really need. How do we need to transform things from a deep, deep level? How are we moving, toward or around or with what comes up for us, what we're confronted with all the time and every day. And I was telling the students not too long ago, maybe last Saturday, maybe I don't know what day it is, and I was talking about we are to be undone. The disruptions that come to us are exactly the thunder that makes our heart beat. Boom! Is exactly what we need. To get startled and be ready. And in that, sometimes we try to hurry up and get rid of it. We want to get composed again. We don't like that startled state. I can't do nothing if I'm startled. Let me breathe. And you're not breathing anything away. We can't breathe it away. You are just breathing so you can be with the startledness and the disruption. Please remain in that. Please remain in the tears. Please remain in that place that is disrupting you, so that those are the things, that's the path. You have some ground under your feet to take the next step, rather than waiting and then it's gone and then you take a step and it's off the cliff. Boom, oops. Maybe that wasn't the right, I should have, whoops, So just that kind of inviting that as an invitation to how we might come toward what we want to invent and what we want to bring to the world. So let me just look over my notes a bit. If we invent from the silence of which a hermit listens, then perhaps more of our inventions, our thoughts, our actions, our ideas will be for the well-being of each of us. What would it look like to take the time before launching our notions? What is it to be a hermit? We don't have to go to a faraway land. I'm not saying now everybody let's go find some place, which would be great, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this can be the kind of hermit mind, a Hanshan mind, to look and see and feel how you can take the hermit mind beyond the mountain, and bring it right to yourself on your cushion, right in the moment. So again, I don't have a watch and I forgot to get a clock, but I do want to okay, thank you. Uh-huh.
It's almost 1:15.
Okay, all right, good, because I do want to take one or two questions. So, I was at the Garrison Institute recently and was staying in an old monastery. And it caused me to write about hermits, which was interesting because I didn't know when I got here there would be a poetry class on a hermit. So, you see, you never know. You never know. Yeah, I'm there thinking I'm inventing something at Mind and Life, and what was happening was something that was going to happen here at Upaya Zen Center. It's beautiful. And that's why I'm going to say what I'm going to say here about hermits. At a distance, the train whistles. So I'm at Garrison Institute. How many have been to Garrison Institute in New York? In Garrison, New York. Okay, great. So at a distance, the train whistles, screeches along the sacred Hudson River. The sun barely enters the narrow windows in the monastery where Capuchin Franciscan monks have faded into the walls. A sudden austerity, simplicity, and poverty reeks in the air. It is the smell of hermits. sorcerers of nature. It is a deep yearning for nature that one leaves the busy world to engage the source of that world, to live close to the earth, to see and hear it, to continue to commune with the earth, is to listen to its messages clearly, stated in bird songs and falling leaves. Uninterrupted conversations with the spirits of the ancients. These ancients are older than the planet. To dedicate a life to listening 24 hours a day is not a sacrifice for the hermit. It is a path to the source of life. It is a deep intimacy with the mystery of life. There is never any time lost on it. The perpetual and eternal sounds of nature, including the utterance of human beings, is the path. A hermit life is ordinary magic. The rising mist hovers the mountains. Raindrops hang off tips of leaves. Humidity rises from the warm earth. The wide river shines. A sound from the deep woods goes silent. And yet the hermit does not have to be tucked in a cave. One can slip into one's own inner mountain. And if sabishi, which is a spiritual loneliness, appears, the heart flower opens and turns towards the sun. So I wrote that, and I feel like that's hermit mind for me, and that you can bring that to the inventions that we want and what we want to live with, so that we're not inventing something that further down the road it goes not in alignment with the life that we are walking and living and want to have with each other right here on this earth. So I was going to read the first poem, but I think I want to have one or two questions, and before it ends at 6:30, right? I'm still learning what's going on here. What's going on? Oh. Yes, in the back.
So is sabashi, excuse this word, a form of emptiness?
Oh, I forgot to talk about emptiness. Hold on. Oh. So I do want to say, let's put it this way. The fullness of our inventions can be considered in the impermanence of our lives, in the impermanence of this world, and considered in our interrelationship with each other. So if an invention is full and exciting and has all of the passion and form that we bring to this life, that's wonderful. But if the invention is not a part of an understanding that we're all related, that it's invented without an understanding of interrelationship, then that invention could turn against us, could be that one that we're dying from. And that the emptiness is it's that the invention is not in and of itself, and so nothing is in and of itself. So therefore it's empty. I'm not here, I'm empty without you. You're empty without me, we're empty, right in here. Right now I'm teaching, tomorrow I'm student. So it's a relationship. So if the relationship between things and between people are not understood, and not that there is an emptiness without the relationship, then the fullness of the invention could possibly not be what we need, however fun it feels and exciting and joyful. So emptiness is full. And so it's full with the interrelationship that we are, our interdependence, interbeing for some who might use that term. And so I was talking about that too just Sunday night, actually. So all of these talks are definitely interweaving, and they should, because I'm talking about where I am. So I hope that helps a little bit, kind of a way of taking the teachings of interbeing and interdependence and actually applying it to how we live our lives, how we come up with what we come up with. So everything, you could actually come up with your own, something you're studying or exploring, and notice what the interrelationship of that thing, idea, and how it impacts you, your family, your community, your temple, your sangha, anything. You can explore that, so that it's not something you're not working and living in a vacuum. So like when we say we're bodhisattvas, and we talk about being bodhisattvas and being interested in disrupting suffering. We don't want it to happen, and to ease suffering. We're not doing that because that person suffers. We're doing it because we suffer. We all suffer. That's in emptiness. That's where emptiness looks like. Because it's not, it's so, if we try to apply English words to it like empty nothing or nihilism, that's something else. That's not the nothing. That's not the emptiness. So does that help, or did it get worse? Okay. Thank you for bringing that up, though. Okay. There's a hand right here. Yeah.
Yeah, just up the road. Yeah, just up the road in Los Alamos.
Mm-hmm.
They're inventing nuclear weapons that can fit into a suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
How do we collectively live with that invention?
Like we are right this moment. We're living with it anyway right now. Now how do we live with it happily or not happily? That's something else. But we're living with it right now. We're living with being there, knowing that has happened. And I think, wasn't the first atomic bomb here happened in New Mexico? So there's a history of the earth here that many indigenous cultures are trying to transform through ritual and ceremony to transform this destruction of the earth. And so we are doing that too. This is the ritual. Our rituals happen right here in the Zendo. When I bow here and acknowledge the teachings, that I'm been transmitted. I didn't just dream them up. I'm transmitting Buddha's teachings. I bow to that first. I'm not Buddha. I didn't create that. I didn't go on a vision quest and come with all these teachings and telling you. And then I turn around and I bow out to you. And so we're acknowledging that we're in here together. And for me, that is the most important, is that we are acknowledging our collective existence. And so we may find ways to actually speak to what's happening around any issue, nuclear weapons and these things that we invent. And then we also can stop and look at the human nature or human condition that creates such inventions, to see whether or not we are capable of the same thing, because we're human too. It may not look like that. We may dream up something that we think is going to be really great for everybody, and then it turns out it's not. It's like, that wasn't so great. So I really invite us to trust what we're doing, here. And like I tell my students, and if they're, watching on this live stream, and welcome live stream audience, that there's no reason for us to do this if we don't trust it as a response to the human condition. And there's not just us. There's so many more of us than what's in this room. Millions. And I trust that. I've been trusting it. Now, does that stop anything? That is not for me to decide. Or am I going to single-handedly stop that? No, I am not. I do what I do. I've chosen to engage my life in a way that I hope has an impact further than me. And I know it does, because when I do something wrong, it really impacts everybody quite often. Just like that, boom. So I said, oh yeah, I got the power. I can impact people positively or negatively. Just me, one person. One. And we know that. So I believe in it. I believe in that I have chosen this way. I have chosen this walk. And I've dedicated my life to it with joy, not with, oh, I should do this. And boy, what a bore, like hard work. No, because I really have chosen this. And to the chagrin of some people, like, why did you choose a profession that you trained in for 20-something years and you don't get paid? And when she said it to me, I was like, I had never thought about it because my heart was just in it so much. And I was being supported, I guess, I imagine, but it just wasn't the first thing. And then I said, oh yeah, I could have done computer science because I'm really good at computers, and I am. I'm like a whiz, I could do computer language and everything. I could be that one. But it's not where I landed. So maybe one more question.
I have a real short question.
Okay, he's coming with the mic.
Your talk today really spoke to me in so many ways, and I'm really glad that you followed your heart to give it. And I was hoping I could get a copy of the Hermit poem you wrote, because I really think I need to read that again.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see how to do that. I'm not sure. Part of this is a new book I'm writing, which is another kind of like wild thing, because before I even went to Garrison, I was already in conversation with Parallax to write a book, a season of silence and contemplation, poetry, and Zen. And that's what this is. It's a draft from that beginnings of that. And I'm so excited to write from that place that I live. I've been writing poetry since I was 8 years old, so it's been a long journey. Okay. Would you like to hear, which part would you like to hear, the Hermit one or the Hanshan poem? Hanshan? Sounds like that's the winner. Okay. Pale yellow swallowtails spread their wings. Winds of the monsoon rains whip past spruce trees like 100-foot waves in the desert. Thunder unleashed 1,000,000 years of screams from my heart, loud enough to put out lights and expose the darkness, inducing cicadas to sing. If we cannot say we are afraid of the dark, then thunder is understood. Heartbeat out of control is perfect. Screaming is sane in a world dying from its own inventions. What if candlelight is all that is left to find the way to Cold Mountain? Upon arrival, the candlelight dies into a heap of your bones.